Storytime dying saved me. Last summer 3 friends and I decided to go on a road trip, but I'm the only one who came back. The first day of driving went perfect and it's still one of the best days of life. Then there was the second day, and it would become the worst day of my life. We were all taking turns sleeping and driving, and it was my turn to drive. I knew I might be going the wrong way, but I didn't want to wake anyone up. Of course it started to get dark, and I ended up on this random road that was too narrow to turn around on. It was way too late when I realized it was someone's driveway. I tried to reverse out, but my tire hit something and woke everyone up. We all got out of the car to see what it was, and the horror that surged through us when we realized what it was. Nauseating. There, covering the width of the driveway, were tire spikes. Someone had put them there on purpose after we drove in, but why? We should have just ran or called 911, but my friend was so pissed he stormed to the front door of the house. The guy who opened the door immediately gave me the creeps, but he seemed sorry and concerned. He told us we should probably come inside since he had no idea who was out there or why they'd do such a thing. Stupidly, we all went inside, and none of us would ever walk back out. The guy said his name was Tim, offered us some water, and showed us the bathroom, so everything seemed fine. That is until one of the guys went to the bathroom and started screaming in a way I've never heard before. Before we could even get up from our chairs, Tim grabbed a hammer, and the last thing I remember is watching my friend get hit in the head and go down. I woke up strapped to a table, and the sound of Tim's voice saying "Welcome back." I tried to sit up, but suddenly I could feel electricity running through my entire body. The pain was unbearable, and I thought I must have passed out again, because when I woke up I was outside. I knew I was wet, cold, and the sun was up, but everything else was a blur. More and more, I realized the scene around me was straight out of a horror movie. A bloody, dismembered arm was laying across my neck. When I screamed and pulled it away, I saw my friend's tattoo. I crawled out of the ditch I was in with the parts of my friends and found help. It turns out my heart stopped while Tim was torturing me, and I was immediately discarded. The rest of my friends weren't as lucky, so it turns out dying saved my life. Storytime. I heard it knocking. I never thought that a simple shower could turn into a nightmare, but that's exactly what happened. I, 23 female, live alone in a tiny second-floor apartment. It was supposed to be a safe haven, but now my skin crawls just being in here. One regular day, I decided to take a shower, which I thought would be normal. As I stepped into the shower, I glanced up at the bathroom window out of habit just to check. The window was small and high up, so there was no way anyone could see inside. I felt completely at ease and went on with my shower, but then, as I was shampooing my hair, I heard it, a faint, rhythmic knocking coming from the bathroom door. I panicked because I live alone, and I was pretty sure I had locked the apartment's front door before showering. I quickly rinsed the shampoo from my hair and shut off the water. The knocking stopped, but I was sure I heard something. I took a deep breath, brushed it off, and continued my shower. About 5 minutes later, I heard the knocking again, but this time, it was more of an angry bang that just continued. I was so annoyed I forgot I was afraid and flung the bathroom door open. I was expecting to find maintenance or a neighbor, but there was nothing. I was really confused, but as I looked up at the little window in the bathroom I froze. Fear flooded my body as I realized there was a tiny handprint on the window. I was almost positive it hadn't been there before, but I didn't want to accept that. I told myself I just missed it, but something about the way it looked seemed off. As I stood on my bathroom sink to get a closer look, the realization almost knocked me backwards. The handprint was on the outside of the bathroom window. My heart raced as the impossible dawned on me. I lived on the second floor, and there was no balcony or ledge for anyone to stand on. The handprint is still there, and I still have no idea how it got there. I just hope whatever left it doesn't come knocking. Storytime. I didn't do it. I, 15 female, have a pretty big group of friends. In total there's 6 of us. Well, I guess I should say there were 6 of us. One decision would change my life forever and end the lives of 5 of us. My friend Jen was obsessed with magic, not the cheesy kind you see in stage acts, but spells, altars, and the mystical arts. She came to the group with a proposition, a new spell that would forever bind us as a group. That part was true, just not in the way we all thought. We expected to hang out in the woods, make a cringe we love each other pact, and say a few meaningless hocus pocus words. But that is not at all what happened. Jen told us to meet her at our usual spot in the woods, and we should all bring something we love. The night of the spell, everything was fine at first. We got to our spot, hung out, ate, and just had fun. It all took a turn for the worst when Jen told us it was time to do the spell. She asked us all to make a circle and put the things we loved in the center. Then she told us to repeat after her. We all repeated her ridiculous chanting, and the rest of us thought it was funny, like Jen was just a joke. But then the energy in the woods shifted, and I started to feel a sense of dread dread creeping in. I started to tell Jen I didn't like how I was feeling, and that's when it hit me like a ton of bricks. I couldn't move, and even though I didn't want to anymore, I was still chanting. Jen was in control, but not just of me, of all of us. I kept trying to move, to fight back, to say anything else, but Jen was too strong. I started to feel myself floating upwards, and when I looked down, what I saw terrified me. There was Jen standing and chanting, looking all powerful. Kneeling around her, the rest of us chanted in an uncontrollable zombie-like way. All of our eyes were just white, and then there was darkness. I woke up hours later, still in the woods surrounded by the girls. As I kicked them one by one, and nobody moved, I knew I had done it. My first try at a major hex and body swap, and I did it. Well, technically, I didn't do it. Jen did. See, I've been the girl you thought was telling the story for about 2 months now. How am I doing? Storytime. I tried to warn them. A few years ago, while browsing through a dusty second-hand bookstore, I stumbled upon a book that would change my life forever. There was no title, no description, and the book was held shut by a lock that looked older than dirt. I guess the cover was leather, but I wasn't sure because it felt strange. Curiosity got the best of me, and I decided to buy the book. Now I wish I never had. As soon as I stepped out of the store, I dropped the book. When the pages flew open, they were blank, and that made me pretty angry. I reached down to grab the book, and as my finger touched the page, it felt as if the book bit me. I know that sounds crazy, but my finger began to bleed, proving that I wasn't going crazy. In that moment, I realized buying this book was a grave mistake. Like ink on a paper, my blood began to fill in the missing words. The more I read, the more unsettling it became. And then it hit me. What the book was describing was my death. It didn't seem to be random or made up, and for whatever reason, I felt like what this book said was the truth. While I stared at the pages in disbelief, someone came up behind me and smacked the book out of my hand. I turned around to see it was Jack, a guy from my school who always bothers me. He was holding his hand in pain, and that's when I saw the drops of blood. I grabbed the book, fearing the worst, and I was right. A new page began filling up with how Jack would die. I stared in horror as the page sealed his fate in a grotesque and gruesome way. Jack would be on a boat, and while being mean to a 10-year-old girl, he would fall overboard and get sucked into the propellers. I didn't know who the girl was or when it would happen, but I tried to warn him. Every time I tried to explain, he would just mock me and laugh. I tried to show him the book, but to him the pages were still blank. Jack called me crazy, snatched the book out of my hand, and tried to rip it in two, but instead of hearing the sound of pages ripping, all I heard was Jack's screams. The cover of the book was no longer dried and leather-like, it was skin, and the seams and pages oozed with a thick red sludge. Jack's hands were covered in whatever oozed out of the book, and he took off running without saying a single word, and without me getting him to agree to stay off of boats. 2 months later, there was an article in the paper. Local boy dies in tragic accident. Since Jack, there have been others, but no one will listen to me. But I tried to warn them. Storytime, it's in there somewhere. I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, but here I am. I just moved into a new house, and one night I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. It all started when I found an old journal in the attic, hidden away in a dusty, forgotten corner. It seemed like something that belonged in a museum, so I couldn't resist the urge to look through it. I learned pretty quickly that the journal belonged to someone named Samuel, and it was filled with weird entries and sketches of bizarre symbols. Samuel had been obsessed with the occult, and he detailed his experiments with dark magic and summoning rituals. It was a chilling glimpse into a world I never even thought existed. As I read further, I discovered Samuel's most disturbing entry, and it took every ounce of strength not to run out of that house. Samuel had apparently attempted a ritual, and, judging by his frantic, terrified entries, something had gone terribly wrong. I tried to dismiss it as the ramblings of a crazy man, but I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that there was more to this. And that's when I saw what Samuel was really trying to do before it had all gone wrong. It was a ritual that allowed the summoned entity to possess the closest living thing. The reality of my situation came crashing down around me as I realized the house had been vacant for over a decade. Then I heard a soft, whispered voice coming from a dark corner in my room. My heart skipped a beat, and I tried to listen, but the words were like a language from another world. I grabbed my laptop, ran out of the house, and I haven't been back since. It sucks, but I know eventually I'll have to sell the house, even though I know it's in there somewhere.